The Ask Podcast. Welcome to the Ask Podcast, where we explore the intersection between people and technology. I am your host, Romeo, and I'm thrilled to introduce our guest today, who is Yine Yenki Nyika, the co-founder of GoGirls ICT Initiative in Juba. Yine and her team are revolutionizing education in South Sudan by creating offline audio content to enhance and ease the learning of science subject and promoting STEM education of course, in South Sudan. Join us as we dive into Yine's work and learn more about how she is using technology to make a difference in education in South Sudan. And they are calling it the Classroom on Phone series. You're welcome.
Thank you, Romeo.
Yes. So, first and foremost, I would love you to tell us about Classroom on Phone. What is Classroom on Phone?
Classroom on Phone is a GoGirls learning podcast. It's focused at making learning science fun and adventurous for both girls and boys in South Sudan.
Okay, so basically it's like producing education content that is science related and making it fun for the girls and the boys here.
Yes.
And so, what was the main problem before the creation of this Classroom on Phone? Like, what was the main inspiration around its creation?
I like it that you said it's an inspiration instead of a problem, but yeah, true, it's problems that always inspire us to innovate. So Classroom on Phone, it's something that it's a concept that we wrote in 2015. And our main focus was to actually see how we could support the students whom we were teaching then at the University of Juba, because we noticed that some missed lectures and there's no way they could catch up. So we were trying to think of innovative ways how we could support our students. But somehow we shelved the whole idea until COVID happened in 2020. So when COVID happened, it's like we started again to think, and we were like, again, it's like we've already gone into a lockdown. Students are at home. And of course, as GoGirls, we have beneficiaries. So we wanted to find out how were our beneficiaries doing, how are they learning, how are they coping, how are the teachers who are also beneficiaries and the schools of our programs, how were they doing during this time? And when they shared with us what the different approaches that they had adopted, for example, giving students handouts, and also some development partners also came up with the idea of having radio lessons for the participants. So it's like these were all incorporated into the learning. They were all incorporated for the continuity of learners to be engaged during this time and perhaps continue learning. So when we look at all these different modalities from us, we wanted to understand what are some of the limitations they actually have with all these different approaches in place. They were saying one of the huge challenges they have seen, of course, as teachers, is preparing all these notes and giving them to the students. It's expensive to print. It's also time consuming, and some teachers have like classes from senior 1 to senior 4. So it really needed a lot, and at the same time there's no pay for the teacher. So from our side, it was like ringing a bell, and as innovators we are trying to see, what can we actually do to make sure that we perhaps make this process fun for the teacher and also reduce their workload. Then when we went ahead also to interact and engage with them, we also found out that one of the challenges or limitations that they found out is students were not understanding, especially for science subjects. Students were not understanding what they were giving them. They could not even answer, because it's like students take these handouts, then at the end of the week, they come back and meet the teacher. But teachers noticed that they could not even express, or they could not explain even what they have read throughout the week. So they realized the method or the methodology was not working. So that pushed us further to also find out what was it. Was it hard for these particular learners that they were actually giving this learning content or not? So we found out some interesting facts from the learners. One of them is, of course, they lack electricity, so they can't read. Then, of course, we know we are Africans. We know our settings. We know our cultural norms. As a girl, for example, mainly we have home chores to do from morning up to evening, and by the end of it, they realize they are tired, so they can't read. Sometimes when they want to read, someone is playing music. Sometimes when they want to focus and study, someone calls you or you're sent, because you have to maybe go to the market. So you realize at the end of the day, there's actually a lot of interruptions that this girl can't focus or read. The same with, actually, interestingly, the same also with boys, because there were also a number of boys that we also interacted with. And they say sometimes in the room you're 10 and you can't study because everyone in that room has different activities they're doing. They're not even they're not putting like the aspect in their mind that in this room we have a student. So looking at all these different limitations that these kids were going through, that was actually the basis of us coming up with classroom on phone. Of course, there are other facts or based from our experiences that we've worked with university students. One thing that is really so common that I witnessed myself is, so the culture of cheating among university students, it's something that really perturbs me a lot, because then as an instructor who was at the university and seeing that even students who are doing science-related courses can't think and answer and resonate with concepts and ideas, and they think that the only way for them to pass was cheating, I felt like there is more that we also need to do in our education sector in South Sudan. We need thinkers. If I'm talking, if we look into the science aspect, even arts, we need creative students. We need students who can have a different eye for something. So how are we going to have students who can think, students who can reason, students who can critically observe if we don't actually find different approaches to improve our education sector? So that was also another inspiration that was toppled to all these other challenges.
These are like a couple of really amazing inspirations that actually brought up the formation of the Classroom on Phone series. But now, can we begin talking about exactly the approach itself? Classroom on Phone. So how does it work?
It's a very simple concept, actually. With Classroom on Phone, one thing that we capitalize the most is the memory cards. Okay, during our research, we found out that almost in every home or every child, even the youngest being 10-year-old, whom we brought on board, who are primary 5, primary 4, and we realized most of them could use phones, and most of them had music on memory cards, and perhaps some even had comedies, which was videos. And our idea was, we're looking at very cheap technologies, or what parents have in their homes, which we could take as an advantage for these students to actually continue learning at home. And we found out that in every home, everyone had a button phone. And with button phones, it's easy for you to insert a memory card. So we're like, this is it. We have it. And this is something that we can capitalize on. Yeah.
This is amazing. So basically, you have these audios prepared, put in memory cards, shared to these students using memory cards.
I don't want to say that it's shared.
Yes.
So
then how do they get the audios?
We don't share it directly with the student because we believe it's very important. Like the previous approaches, one thing that we found out was there was lack of parent, teacher, and child relationship. And with our approach now, we're looking at capitalizing on the parent who should connect the student and who should connect the teacher. Because here now, the teacher is the one who creates the content, and the student is the consumer. But how should this student get these resources? So this is where the parent come in, because parents have smartphones or they have button phones. A parent has the memory card, or they can afford to get the memory cards, which are very cheap really in the market. So the whole concept was to sell the idea to the parent, and we told them, look, we have this content, listen to it. Do you think this is something you feel your child could learn faster or understand these concepts easier or not? And interestingly, every parent was like, I wish this was the learning modality in place that our child were using at home. Learning would be much easier.
All right, amazing. So right now, I would love to ask, like, who have been your primary target with this amazing program? Who are the children you're making this content for, or the students, or who have been your main prime target?
For Classroom on Phone, our main target was from primary 5 to form 3.
Okay.
Yes. So it's like the content is diverse, because we know, for example, a kid who is in P6 could listen to content in primary 5 to refresh their mind.
Yes.
Then the same applies to a student who is in Form 3. They would love to also refresh their mind with content in Form 1 or in Form 2. So yes, so it's that range like from 10-year-old to almost 18, 19.
18, 19. Yes. So, okay, let's talk about, first of all, the content itself. And you mentioned some aspects about the content, which I actually admired. The fact that you say that this content is going to make the work more easier. Right? It's going to make learning easier. It's going to make learning interactive. It's going to make learning really sweeter and nice, and more especially on the target of sciences here. Let's look at the content. How is this content developed to be made for you to think it's going to make someone to find sciences easy? Like, what is the content in the content? What is the content of the podcasts? All right? What is the content of those audios? Yeah, exactly. What is inside it?
So I think for a very long time, I want to speak from my own personal experiences as someone who almost did sciences throughout. For a very long time, most girls have actually found sciences to be very hard. It's not only in South Sudan, but I think it's a general problem. Yes, it's a general problem worldwide. Girls literally find sciences to be very hard. And me, I think at some point, I also struggled within myself which subject is easier, which subject is hard. And I think that goes back to how science has been portrayed to us with all these, I don't want to call them gigantic concepts and theories. And we find it very hard to relate.
Yes.
To science.
Yes.
But our approach here with Classroom on Phone was to actually look at very basic and realistic experiments which this child could do at home from the beginning till the end and be able to take notes, because we believe science, to make it very practical, someone needs to be very observant and someone needs to take all those notes so that you can be able to prove concepts. So that's the approach that we brought in. If I can take a very simple example, which I think I love using the most, is just moving chair from one place to the other. And in physics, we are just maybe talking about forces or movement from here to there. And that's very easy. If I'm going to push a wheelbarrow, for example, to the borehole, we know we have boreholes everywhere in South Sudan. Normally, it's very easy. We are sloping. And when you're coming back, you realize you're what?
You're going uphill. Yeah.
Yes, you're going uphill. And in physics, we're talking of acceleration and deceleration. Exactly. And perhaps when you're coming from the borehole, maybe your jerrycans are full, so you have to really put a lot of energy. So it's just to remind the girls, to remind the boys that actually science is very easy if we can easily connect to our environment. We see leaves falling, and yet we're talking of gravitational forces. And yet we see it's a very... Like when someone tells you about gravitational force, you feel like it's something so huge that you can't relate to. But if someone tells you, for example, and I mean, if someone just gives you a very simple example of leaves falling down, of you throwing a ball and it falls down, it's very relatable. And with this content, those were like the simplest examples we are looking at. We take them and we see how can this child be able to experiment and do this at home, process by process till the end. And again, come and present back to the teacher. So we gauge based on how the student has done the experiment, whether they have understood the concepts or not. And perhaps also we have one of the huge limitations, I think, which is our poor infrastructure. We lack labs in schools. And I think as innovators, it's time for us to say, okay, well, we lack the infrastructure, but how can we still innovate and make sure we make learning science more practical and interesting? Yes.
Amazing. So, who are you working with in the production of this content?
Teachers.
Teachers,
yes. Because we can't produce this content without teachers who are the educators of these learners.
So you have like selected teachers to do this program, or any other teacher who is anywhere can come and be like, hey, can I record this session? Like, what is the process? What does it take?
It's selected teachers because we really had to walk through with them on how they should actually build this content. Yes. How should they structure this subject that the student should understand? And after them structuring, of course, it comes back to us. We have to ask them questions. Do you think they can easily relate to this?
Exactly.
Can we look for a very simpler example? If not simpler, can we use very simple language that even when this child receives this content, they'll find it very interesting and they can easily relate to?
Yes.
So it's our team and the teachers.
Exactly.
Yes.
So basically, it's like, okay, we have to use the most relevant yet simple examples to
Exactly.
get these children to really understand.
Yes.
Amazing. So this is super great. And have you been getting challenges? Like, what are the challenges you've been getting through your implementation of this program and to the children out there?
I think our huge challenge now is continuity, because we lack, I don't want to say resources because we're already a resource, but yeah, I think resources in terms of money.
Yeah, money.
Yes, because don't
Yeah.
say money.
Yeah,
Looks like we are all, we all want money.
Yeah.
Oh yes, I love money. Everyone loves money. But yeah, true. I think the huge challenge that we have right now is continuity in how we can facilitate these teachers, in how these teachers can actually continue producing this content, in how these teachers could actually train more teachers to be part of this revolution, so that we have this content. And of course, we should be able to engage with the Ministry of Education.
Yes.
Yes, at some point, and find modalities and see how this could actually be an integral part of the learning curriculum, where students even continue to learn from home, or perhaps they could even do some of these experiments at school, or they do them at home, bring them to school to be evaluated.
Yes.
Yes.
And this is like the vision later, what you want to see ahead.
Exactly, that's like the bigger picture I want to see. I want to see more girls being part of science. I want to see more girls being engineers. I want to see more girls finding science very easy, because I think we've been so much tied to our cultural norms that sciences are always meant for men. And perhaps that explains the reason why there are always very few women worldwide, even in the science spectrum or science sector. It's because of those stereotypes. And how can we demystify that if we as women don't push and actually find solutions to change it?
Amazing. So is this content also online? Amazing. Yeah. So maybe would you love to share out maybe your information and contact? How can people get access to you as Yine, or to GoGirls, or to even a Classroom on Phone? Maybe if there's someone out there who would be like, hey, we would love to support, we would love to find a way maybe to get a memory card, maybe to get something. You never know, right? Or someone just would love to appreciate your work. How can they get access to you?
Okay, let them just Google GoGirls ICT Initiative. They'll find all our different platforms and reach us.
Okay.
Our website, it's still www.gogirlsict.org. Facebook, it's GoGirls ICT. Our Twitter handle is GoGirls ICT Juba. I think we are the only ones. Then Instagram, it's GoGirls ICT. We are also on the Rugged campus. You can also find us there, GoGirls ICT. So everywhere it's GoGirls ICT, I'm sure you'll find us.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for actually providing solutions to problems in your community, and one which has actually been about the issue of access to education content, and specifically making science easy for girls and boys as well in South Sudan. And thank you so much for coming to the show.
You're welcome.
To our listener, and of course someone who has been with us as our viewer from the beginning of this conversation until now, we would love to appreciate and say thank you so much. And we have come to the end of the episode of the Ask Podcast, where we've been talking to Yine Yenki, who has been telling us basically how they're using other different methodologies of audio production and of course podcasts in reaching out to students and young people within their community to make science as easy, and of course to make them have access to this education content in the midst of a post-conflict environment like South Sudan. Otherwise, thank you so much. On the show, we shall be still having more different other people and innovators who will be coming in and telling us exactly how they are solving some of the problems that are existing in their community. Otherwise, from me to you, thank you so much. And you, if you're out there as well, you're an innovator, you're a space that you need to be documented, please just write askpodcast9@gmail.com, send us a request, or find us in all our different platforms on social media. Just give a DM. We shall find a way to get you. But from Romeo, who has been the host, to anyone who is out there as a viewer and listener, thank you so much, and peace.